Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. Welcome to my channel, where your adventure into the future starts right now. Step into a vibrant universe filled with groundbreaking technology, breathtaking alien landscapes, and exhilarating sci-fi narratives that challenge your imagination. From daring explorations of distant galaxies to haunting journeys through dystopian societies, we uncover the most captivating stories and innovative ideas that will shape the world of tomorrow. Subscribe today and join us on an incredible intergalactic voyage that promises to inspire and thrill. The concept of community, a fundamental aspect of human culture, had long been a defining feature of Earth's social fabric. It was, in many ways, the invisible thread that bound people together in a world that often seemed to be growing more fragmented. It wasn't merely the presence of people in a particular place, but the shared sense of belonging, mutual responsibility, and solidarity that characterized the human experience. From the earliest tribes to the modern interconnected global village, humans had learned to build, sustain, and, at times, repair their communities, seeking ways to live together harmoniously despite differences. Yet, what few could have predicted was that this earth-bound understanding of community would not remain confined to the small blue planet orbiting a star in the distant reaches of a quiet solar system. Through an unforeseen series of events, the idea of community would transcend Earth and become the catalyst for a radical transformation that would inspire alien civilizations across the galaxy to rebuild their own connections, heal ancient rifts, and forge bonds that had once seemed impossible. When humanity first reached out to the stars, in the early days of space exploration, the notion of community was perhaps the furthest thing from the minds of most interstellar civilizations. To them, the universe was vast, and life was solitary. Planets existed in isolation, as did their inhabitants, who often regarded their neighbors with suspicion or even disdain. Political allegiances were founded on power, control, and resources, not on any shared cultural or emotional connection. Yet when humanity made contact with these distant worlds, they brought with them an idea that was profoundly simple, yet incredibly powerful. The idea that we, as individuals and as species, are stronger together than apart, and that there is something inherently valuable in creating spaces where cooperation, empathy, and mutual care could flourish. At first, the response was skeptical. Human communities were perceived by many alien species as quaint, perhaps even naive. Earth, with its tumultuous history of war, exploitation, and inequality, seemed like an unlikely model for the future. To many, the idea of a global community had been little more than an aspiration on Earth itself, often overshadowed by the reality of national, political, and economic divisions. In the early days of interspecies interaction, Earth's own struggles with inequality, environmental degradation, and geopolitical tensions left many skeptical that the human model of community could have any significant universal application. Yet despite these doubts, something about humanity's insistence on the importance of connection, despite all the evidence to the contrary, began to resonate with the far-flung civilizations that inhabited the stars. The first cracks in the long-standing alien suspicion of community came not from grand speeches or idealistic declarations, but through simple acts of kindness and solidarity. Human volunteers, upon arriving on distant planets, did not arrive with weapons or demands for control. Instead, They arrived with open hands, offering their assistance, expertise, and knowledge. Whether it was helping with the rebuilding of a society torn apart by conflict, providing medical aid in the wake of a pandemic, or offering educational resources to worlds struggling with their own technological and social divisions, human efforts were often grounded in the fundamental principles of community. It wasn't just about what was done, but how it was done. The approach was one that emphasized respect, listening, and inclusivity. The humans were not the saviors. They were there to listen, to understand, and to work alongside the indigenous peoples of those worlds to build something stronger together. It was in these humble efforts that something extraordinary began to happen. Alien societies that had long been fractured, whether due to historical conflicts, resource scarcity, or inherent distrust of outsiders, began to see the value in building connections. In the early years, there were doubts. Many alien cultures had experienced centuries, even millennia, of isolation. Their understanding of community was often centered around exclusion or territoriality, where the idea of building a community that included all sentient beings, regardless of their background, was seen as an unrealistic and dangerous concept. Some had long ago abandoned the notion of any form of interspecies cooperation, regarding such efforts as impractical at best and a threat to their very existence at worst. Yet, as they watched human-led initiatives unfold when entire communities, regardless of species, were pulled together to face mutual crises, the seeds of change were sown. For the first time, alien species began to experience the power of what human culture had long known, that the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. By coming together, by pooling resources, by sharing knowledge, and by working for the collective good, communities that had once been fragmented and suspicious began to heal. What had once been seen as an abstract and lofty idea community began to take on tangible form. One of the first major shifts came in the realm of interspecies diplomacy. Long accustomed to isolationist policies or competitive zero-sum mindsets, alien governments began to look at the idea of collective cooperation through a new lens. Some species that had long been embroiled in territorial disputes began to reconsider their stance. The concept of territoriality, so deeply ingrained in their cultures, began to be questioned as they saw, firsthand, the success of human-led efforts to unite different species on common goals. Diplomatic exchanges shifted from rivalries to partnerships as alien species realized that their survival and prosperity were inextricably linked to one another. There were notable examples of this newfound cooperation. The Gontari, a species known for their long-standing isolationist tendencies, had for centuries rejected any attempts at interstellar alliance. However, after the human-led reconciliation initiative, which sought to bring together multiple species from previously hostile planets to discuss shared resources and mutual defense, the Gontari began to reconsider their centuries-old policy of isolation. For the first time, they agreed to a formal treaty that emphasized cooperation over competition, a move that was not only groundbreaking but unprecedented in their history. The treaty, which focused on shared knowledge in areas such as agriculture and environmental management, was a direct result of the sense of community that humanity had shown through its volunteerism and outreach. Similarly, the Vrexar, a technologically advanced but emotionally distant species, found themselves at a crossroads when human volunteers arrived to help rebuild after a devastating war. Initially, the Vrexar viewed this act with skepticism. Humanity's efforts seemed naive, even foolish, to those who valued self-reliance and emotional restraint. Yet over time, as the Vrexar began to witness the benefits of working alongside humans and other species, they began to see that their society, for all its technological prowess, was struggling with profound social disconnection. The Vrexar were a species of unparalleled intellect, yet they had become increasingly disconnected from one another in the aftermath of war. Their bonds were tenuous, their communities fractured. The human volunteers, many of whom were working to teach and foster communication skills among the Vrexar, began to transform the very notion of what it meant to be a community. Slowly, the Vrexar began to embrace more open forms of communication, collaboration, and empathy principles that had been foreign to their way of life for millennia. Perhaps the most profound shift occurred on the planet Uthron, a world of multiple sentient species, each existing in pockets of isolation and mistrust. For centuries, Uthranians had been divided along cultural and racial lines, with various species coexisting in uneasy, mutually suspicious pockets. The arrival of human volunteers, who didn't seek to dominate or impose their will, but rather offered their assistance with the aim of fostering understanding, sparked something remarkable. Through coordinated projects, where representatives from all Euthanian species worked together to tackle common challenges such as resource management, education, and health, the deep social and racial divides that had plagued the planet began to heal. The Euthranians, once skeptical of the value of interconnectedness, began to recognize that their survival depended on cooperation, and the first truly interspecies community emerged in their history. The spread of Earth's sense of community throughout the galaxy wasn't without its challenges. There were, of course, those who resisted. There were species that had built their entire cultures around distrust and competition, and they were unwilling to embrace the concept of collective action. Some feared that working together would dilute their own identities or give others undue influence over their fate. Yet the success of the human-led volunteer initiatives was undeniable. The growing number of peaceful, collaborative interspecies communities, the increased diplomatic alliances, the flourishing of trade and knowledge exchange, all were direct results of this new sense of connection that humanity had brought to the galaxy. As these changes began to take root, the notion of community became more than just a social ideal. It became a new framework for galactic governance. Interplanetary organizations were founded on principles of equality, mutual aid, and cooperation. The idea of a unified galaxy, once thought of as utopian or even naive, began to take shape as a reality. This new galactic structure, influenced by humanity's understanding of community, was based on shared resources, shared knowledge, and shared responsibilities. Alien societies, once insular and fragmented, began to see their fates tied not just to their own species, but to the well-being of others. They understood that no society could thrive in isolation, and that the strength of one was the strength of all. It was through this rebuilding of connections that the galaxy began to undergo a profound transformation. The idea of community, once considered a quaint, earthbound concept, became the very backbone of a new era. Alien societies, once defined by division, competition, and suspicion, began to experience the richness of true collaboration. And at the center of it all was the humble yet revolutionary idea that humanity had introduced, that we are stronger when we are connected, that by caring for others, we create a world, or, in this case, a galaxy where everyone can thrive. In the end, it was Earth's sense of community, its willingness to offer help, to listen, to share, and to grow together that became the spark for a universal shift. It was a vision of hope, empathy, and collaboration that resonated deeply with alien civilizations, sparking a renaissance of interspecies cooperation that would echo throughout the galaxy for generations. Humanity's greatest contribution to the cosmos was not in its technology, nor in its ability to conquer or control, but in its unwavering belief that, in the end, we are all connected. And in this connection, this sense of community, lay the true power to rebuild a fractured universe.